بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear colleagues, today inshallah we'll have a short exercise related to random question generation. Great. Let's understand what is going on. So let's go through the concept. We do have a set of questions. These questions are saved in a pool, in database for example, and some of these questions will be selected from this database on randomly approach. Okay, for example, if we have 30 questions which are saved in this pool, in this database, then only we want like 4 or 5 questions will be selected from this database. So what does it mean? It means that questions which will be displayed to students X will be different than questions which will be displayed to students Y. What is the benefit of having such exercise? For sure that cheating will be reduced. Cheating between students will be reduced. Why? Because questions which will be displayed to students will be vary from student to another student. Great. We have to have such hints and such remarks for the designer, for the lecturer who will design these questions. There are 2 remarks. Since we are dealing with a set, which means that the level of complexity for each question belongs to the same set must be equal. So if questions are easy, it means that all questions belongs to that set should be easy. If the question are like moderate, it means that all questions belong to this set should be moderate, and so on and so forth. In addition to the complexity, also we need to make sure that the marks allocated for each question should be the same. Like for example, 1 mark for each question belong to this set, or 2 marks for each question belong to this set, and so on and so forth. Okay, in order to understand, let's go through such examples. In the first example, as you have seen, I will call it as part 1. So the name of the set is part 1, category. Here we do have 3 questions which will be selected from a set of 5 questions. So in our database, which is category, we do have 5 questions: question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, and question 5. How many questions will be selected out of 5? We'll select 3. What is HTML, what is Java, and what is .NET? These are such examples. The second example is part 2. So the name of the set is part 2. Okay, how many questions are there in the database belongs to this category? We do have 4 questions, question 11, 12, 13, and 14. And how many questions will be selected out of 4? We'll have 2. And notice here, this is calculated. So this is mathematical equation. Great. Let's move to the implementation through the Moodle. So we will go and see how Moodle works. After logging to the Moodle, so we need to add activity. We will select quiz. Then we will give a name for such exercise like final exam for IT 1, 2, 3, 4. Intro to, for example, computer science. Just a hint here again. In question behavior, we need to make sure of the following. Shuffle with questions. There are 2 options, either no or yes. What does it mean here? If you put yes, it means that the questions will be shuffled between student X and student Y. So per student, for example, if the order is A, B, C, D, so it can be B, C, D, A, it can be D, A, C, B, and so on and so forth. So make sure here we have yes. And similar scenario, such answers for such questions can be shuffled. So make sure that both questions and answers will be shuffled. This one will increase the reduction of the cheating from students. How questions behave? Again, there are multiple answers related to this question. The most important things I can say are three. Adaptive mode. And what is the meaning of adaptive mode here? It means that students will be allowed to have multiple attempts before moving to the next question. And the answer, for example, if the student clicked on such answer, the application will tell if the answer is correct or wrong. Okay, which means that this is not good approach. The second approach, which is deferred feedback. The deferred feedback, it means that student has to answer, and after clicking on submit, again, the answers will not be displayed to students. So here there is no way for the answer to be displayed for a student. It means that students will not know his answer, if it is right or wrong. And this is the best selection among these set. The last one is interactive with multiple tries. And what is going on here? Here, students will have different trials. Okay, so after clicking on submit button, then after that, the application will ask him to have another trial. But what will happen to the marks? The marks will be reduced based on number of trials. For example, the second trial will have such reduction, the third trial will have such reduction, and so on and so forth. So make sure here we are having and selecting deferred feedback and yes in the shuffling of the questions. Save and return to the course. Great. So as you have seen here now, this one has been created. Let's go. After that, we need to add the questions. Let's go back to our example. Here, we do have two examples, part 1 and part 2. What does it mean here? We mean that we need to create the category, the set first of all. So click on edit quiz, either through this button or through the gear. Okay, one of them. And click on add. In the ad itself, as you have seen here, there are alternatives. So select the last one, which is called random question. So random question will be selected. Okay, so as you have seen here, we have category, and there is nothing, or here there are like all categories, and our category, which will be called as part 1 and part 2, are not exist yet. So we need to create this category first. And in part 1, how many questions are there? There are 3 questions will be selected out of 5 questions. So select 3 questions from here and give part 1 as a title to this category. Okay, and create category and add random question. Great. So as you have seen here, 3 questions are being generated, are being created, but still we didn't create the questions. Just only we created the category, the set, the database. And you can notice here random from these dice. Okay, now these 3 questions are generated in different pages. So in order to put all of them in the same page, just change the design a little bit. Okay, so now all these 3 questions will be in one page. See questions, so just click on see questions. Now the next step is creating and adding these questions. So we are having, what is HTML? This is the first question. Okay, create a new question. Now this is the normal way in order how to create, and we will not go through details in order to create, because previously we had many exercises related to the creation. So for example, I will select on essay, okay, and then add. Here in adding the essay question, we do have alternatives. As you know, we do have different inputs. The question name, what is the difference between question name and question text? Question name here is the short name of the question. For example, here, what is HTML? So I will copy, Control C, and in the context, I will do Control V, copy and paste, and here just only a short name. So for example, I will say HTML question, such hint to me. Okay, and the remaining will be known. Okay, how many, what is the size, and so on and so forth, and what is the marks, how many marks. So here the default mark for this question is 1. Click save. So as you have seen here, HTML question, the short name is being displayed, and if you view it, okay, what is HTML? So the question was displayed to the student. Okay, now we will go and create the second question. See here, now part 1 set has been generated with one question. Let's add another question. So what is next is, what is Java? Okay, so we'll go to the essay, add. See here, make sure that the category is part 1. So we'll say like Java question, for example, and here Control V. Okay, what is Java? And similar scenario, you can do the remaining. Save changes. So now you notice that 2 questions are there. Create a new question. Essay, add. What is the next? What is .NET? So .NET. Save. Okay, so now we created 3 questions, but in our database there are 5 questions. So we'll add the database, create a new database, say add. We'll have, for example, question related to JavaScript. And save. So the 4th question has been added, as you have seen here. Create, say, so let's say question related to Python. So as you have seen here, we created 5 questions for the first set. Part 1 has great. So we created the first question, and let's move to the second question. In the second question, which is part 2, as you have seen here, we do have mathematical equation. So we will go through how to create the mathematical equation. Here in our set, there are 4 questions, and 2 questions will be selected randomly from these 4. So we'll go back here, as you have seen. So there is no part 2. So we will create part 2. Just click on the category here. There are different ways in order to create the category. The first one I showed you. And the second way, since we are here, so we can create. So as you have seen here, this is part 1. Add category. Okay. So we will say part 2. But what will happen if we add it here? If we add part 2 under part 1, it means that part 2 will be a subset of part 1. But don't worry, life is easy. We can deal with it. So as you have seen here, part 2 has been generated, but it is a subset of part 1. So just click on this arrow, and now it is not a subset. Now it is on the same level with 0 number of questions. Okay, so click on part 2, and let's go and add the similar questions. Okay, so create new questions. Say add, I will say math 1. Okay, how it looks like. So we are having 3 plus x, and in the denominator, we are having y plus 5. Great. So calculate. Then expand it, show more buttons. In show more buttons, as you have seen, there are many buttons. Okay, superscript, subscript, and so on and so forth. This button will be used to create the equation editor. So just click on it. So as you have seen here, we do have different symbols, and we are looking for the equation editor. So click on advanced. Okay, and this is our formula. This is our shape, how it looks like. So 3 plus x, just change this one. 3 plus x, and in the denominator, we are having y plus 5. Y plus 5. Save equation. Okay, and then save equation, save changes. So as you have seen, the first one has been generated. Let's see how it looks like. Preview. So as you have seen here, this is how it looks like with the student's view. Okay, so we will add 4 questions. Let's add the second one. So it say add, and then math 2, for example, calculate. Similar scenario, equation editor, and advance. Then select this type. See, as you have seen, differentiation, gather, integration, and so on and so forth. Y minus 2. So we'll go to y minus 2, and in the denominator, we are having z plus 3. Z plus 3. As you have seen here in the preview, will be displayed exactly. So save equation and save changes. So you will notice that the second one has been generated. Just to check. So we are having this kind to student. Now we will add similar, because we need to add 4 questions in our database. So like math 3, calculate, and add equation, advance, this formula. For example, here 2, just only this is a sample, nothing more than this. Save changes. Okay, so this one has been generated as you have seen, and then these are 3. Still one more needs to be added. Is say add, so math 4, calculate, expand to the math equation, advance, x over 10 plus 7. Okay, save changes, and now we are having 4. Okay, so this is correct. Now we are having 4 questions belongs to the second category. Great. So what we will do now after that, as you have seen here in the category, so part 1 has 5 questions, part 2 has 4 questions. So we will go back to our exam. This is our exam. Okay, and then here edit. So as you have seen here, 3 questions will be generated from part 1 if you click on see questions in any one of these. So if you clicked on this one, or this one, you will get exactly the same result. So it will refer you to the 5 questions related to part 1. Let's have a look. So click on questions. So as you have seen, 5 questions came to us. Now we will add the second one. Click on add here. Okay. So add random questions. From where? From part 2. How many questions? We need to add 2 questions. So click here 2. So as you have seen here, 3 questions will be loaded from part 1 and 2 questions will be loaded from part 2. Okay, if you notice here, there is add in addition to this one. Okay, add a new question, add a question, and add random question. What will happen here if you select the first one, add a new question? If you add a new question, this question which will be added, it will not be randomly selected, such as, for example, okay, so say add, then for example, compiler, define compiler. Okay, save changes. So as you have seen here, see the difference, even the logo is different. So from question 1 up to question 5 will be randomly selected, but question number 6 will be displayed to all students. It will not be randomly selected, but it will be shuffled. Make sure this is selected. Okay, and how many marks here? We are having 6 marks. Okay, save, and that's all. So what we did now, we generated the questions related to our exam. So this is the way of how we can generate the randomly questions. Then you can set up the time, the date, and so on and so forth as usual. Thank you very much for your listening.